Hi, guys, and welcome back to the Healing Her podcast. I am so excited about today's guest, which I know I say every time, but these guests are so amazing. These women who want to get vulnerable and share their stories with you are unbelievable. And today we have Jess Palmer on the podcast. And Jess is a Reiki Master. She lives in Boston, and she's also a member of the Healing Her Collective. She has a blog called Scorpio and Sage, and that's also her Instagram handle. And you guys know that I will make sure to put all of her information in the show notes for you so that you can go and follow her and check out everything that she's about. So hi, Jess. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm so excited that you're here. So the first thing that I always like to do with all Healing Her podcast guests is go through like a rapid fire round of questions. And it's just some fun little questions so that people can get to know you a little bit better and feel like we're all best friends before we dive into the good, deep stuff.
Sounds good.
All right. So first thing is, what is one tiny good thing that happened to you today?
I did a tarot reading today. I have to do a reading every morning, and I pulled a card from the Wild Unknown deck and a card from my new Mother Mary Oracle deck. And what was funny is the card I pulled for my Oracle deck was the same exact card I pulled yesterday. And it was just kind of like that moment where I was like, okay, Blessed Mother, I understand what you need me to know for today. Like,
yeah,
a lot of it was about creating and being inspired and living an inspired life, but not having to put pressure on yourself to create a certain thing. You know what I mean? So I felt like that was a great way to start my day. And then I made some essential oil stuff with just fooling around, like no expectations, no pressure. So I've been in a flow state today, which is nice.
That's awesome. Oh, those are such fun days when you just feel like you're in it and you're just like one with it all.
Yep, exactly.
I love that. So are you a coffee or tea drinker?
I feel like I'm mostly coffee, but I've been weaning off of coffee to go more to tea just because for anxiety purposes, sometimes it can kind of get me kind of too jacked up.
Yeah, totally. No, coffee definitely has that, the caffeine that really can get it going, especially if you have anxiety or stress. And funny enough, almost every single person who's been a guest on the podcast so far has said that they're coffee drinkers, but they're trying more tea.
Yeah.
Which is so funny. It's like weaning off. I love it. It's hilarious. And as I sit here with my tea, I was that person. I drink just a cup every day. I'm hypersensitive to caffeine.
Yes.
So I used to love coffee, and I could have a cup, but if I had any more than that, I was like shaking.
Me too.
Then I switched to like half calf. And now if I have any caffeine, I can't have any caffeine. Like I can't drink soda, or like even if any foods like chocolate sometimes has caffeine.
True.
So it's really funny, but I'm a big tea drinker now, but I still will make some decaf when I really need that taste.
Yeah, sometimes you need it.
Yeah, you do. And the almond milk creamer. I mean, I don't know. It's
so
like,
good.
It's really just like a creamer delivery system, but
yes.
Oh goodness. All right. Are you an introvert or an extrovert?
Oh man, I would say typically I'm an introvert in the sense where I like to be at home. I like my space. I don't like to venture out too much, but I'm extroverted in terms of I'm outgoing. Like I can talk to people. I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid to connect with others. It's just physically getting myself there, I feel, is the introverted part of me.
Yeah, I gotcha. That makes sense. And you probably recharge more alone.
At home. Yes.
Yeah, totally. What's your astrological sign?
I'm a Scorpio sun sign.
Okay.
I'm an Aquarius moon sign, and my ascendant sign is Sagittarius.
Okay. What do you resonate most with, do you find?
I mean, it's funny because I just started to connect more with my Aquarius moon sign, not so much the Sagittarius. I definitely feel like a resistance connecting there, but my Scorpio, I've always been very much like, oh, I'm Scorpio, I'm overly emotional and I'm intuitive and a little crazy. So yeah.
Yeah, totally. Do you resonate more with sun or moon energy?
Sun energy, 1,000,000%.
Oh my gosh, that's so awesome to hear. I love like the difference in interviewing you guys because I'm total sun energy and so is Lindsay Norris, but like you two are like the only other sun energies I feel like I've met in a long time.
Yeah, it's tough. I feel like a lot of people resonate with the moon, which is beautiful because the moon is she's so intuitive and she's so like I don't know, she enlightens us, especially in those long hours of the night where we find ourselves like lying in bed, like we find like those answers coming to us. But for me, like I'm definitely more of a sun vibe person. Like I feel recharged outside.
Same.
I feel connected to Mother Earth through the sun. Like, I don't know, but I am trying to connect more with the moon to find that divine feminine balance, because I'm definitely more of my masculine.
Yeah, totally. I agree. I am too. So what is one item on your bucket list?
I'd like to get like a nice yoga mat, like the ones that are like $200-$300. I haven't found a particular brand yet, but I know like quality over quantity, quality in terms of like material. And I always find that I slip and slide a lot, or I get really rough material from like, if you get one from TJ Maxx, it's not going to be the same quality as if you bought it from maybe like a yoga studio, or you know what I mean? I'd like to invest in like a nice mat.
Yeah, that's a good one. I know I'm always like, you can move so easily on the mats.
Yeah.
Some of like the lower quality ones, but it's always, I feel like it's hard to find the perfect yoga mat. There are so many.
For sure.
But it's hard to find it. So that's a good one. What is one non-negotiable part of your morning routine right now?
It's more like my morning check-ins. Like I kind of, before I really even open my eyes, I'm like, how do I feel today? What emotions are kind of here? Because when you're in that state, like that coming out of dream state, that's a really good time to manifest as well. And it's a good time to check in with yourself. So I kind of do both. So I'm like, all right, how do I feel? What can I manifest today? Like what attitude can I manifest today? And like I envision my day going like a certain way. I'm like, okay, I see myself thriving at work. I see myself connecting with people. I see myself fueling my body with the like good food, you know, like I try to plan my day at a certain vibration is usually what I find myself doing in the morning.
That's amazing. I love that so much. And Jess, like I said, is a member of the Healing Her Collective, and we're talking all about manifesting this month. Well, the month of February. This might be posting in March, but in the month of February, we were working all on manifesting, and we're talking about vibrational frequencies and starting your day with a high vibe and kind of carrying that through the day and then bookending your day with that same high vibe. So very cool. And if you could only use one word to describe yourself, what would that one word be?
Intuitive.
Yeah, it's a good one. As a Reiki master. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And tarot card reader. I love it. I love it. It's so good. I feel like actually, I just felt really called to ask you if you wanted to do a reading, not for me, but kind of for the listeners.
Yeah.
Are you into
really
that?
Cool. Yeah. Want me to like pull a card?
Yeah. If you would, I just got the message, just like tell her to pull a card. I don't know. Not to make you work on the podcast.
No, that's fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull a card from my Earth Magic Oracle deck.
Awesome.
This is a very earth-based, earth energy deck. It's like one of my favorites. It's super healing.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm just going to ask everybody to take a few deep breaths. Think of what you need to know right in this moment. Ooh, this is okay. So I pulled the card Cave, Sanctuary.
Oh my gosh, that gave me goosebumps.
Right? Yeah, me too. When I flipped it over, I was like, this is the one. So I think what's important is that this time of year, especially in like the more wintry areas, we can feel secluded, especially for us sun people. We can feel like we're not getting enough, like we're not healing enough, like we're not exposing ourselves enough to the healing that we need. And I think that's because maybe we're not finding sanctuary within ourselves and we're not finding sanctuary in our space. And it's important to have, even if you have a small space, to have some sort of little altar or some sort of like grounding space where you can have like crystals or whatever resonates with you, like a plant, diffuser, like something that keeps you grounded. Like sanctuary is so important. And especially during this time of year where we can feel robbed of that. Because I know I thrive more being outside. That's my sanctuary. And when I feel robbed of that, I need to find it somewhere else, but not only physically, but inside too.
Yeah.
You know, where inside of you do you need to connect more? Where inside of you do you need to heal more? And I love this card. I just think it's
so
super beautiful.
It is beautiful. If you guys could see it, it's like a man in a cave and he's kind of like writing on the wall, right?
Yep.
Which is cool.
Exactly.
And when I saw it, I think that's so amazing, that reading. And when I saw it instantly, it made me feel like this podcast is a sanctuary in a way.
Yes.
Because so many of you guys are using it as a sanctuary to like speak your truth and share that. And it just resonated so deeply. That's amazing. Mm-hmm. Thank you, universe, for having us do that.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Love
That's so cool.
That was great.
All right. So that was really fun, Jess. Thank you for pulling that card for us.
You're welcome.
I hope that you guys got something cool out of it. And remember that like when she's saying sanctuary, when she's talking about it, what comes to you is what that means to you and what you should
certainly
reflect on. And so it's going to mean something a little bit different to everybody. And that's what's so cool about it. So Jess came on here to share her truth and her story, like all guests of the Healing Her podcast. And it's really special and beautiful. And I know you guys are going to love it. So I want to just invite you to chat about whatever you want to start with. So your story, your truth, kind of how you want to combine them and present them. And then we'll discuss it a little bit more.
Sure. So let's see. Starting when I was 10, I was bullied in school for being overweight. And I'm about 5'1", and so I'm a little tiny. Yeah. And I definitely was still someone who carried their baby fat for a while.
Yeah.
And looking back now, like that's okay. Mm-hmm. Like that's totally okay. But me then, it wasn't okay. You know, I was bullied from 10 to 14, 15.
Okay.
Always about my weight.
Right.
Even at points where I wasn't even heavy anymore, I was with the same kids for so long that was kind of the only thing that they could make fun of me for.
Yeah.
And so when I was 13, I started to diet. I started to restrict. And it wasn't dieting like counting calories. It was just not eating or skipping meals. Mm-hmm. And then doing 100 crunches at night and only drinking water and green tea for the first 4 hours of the day.
Yeah.
And it just spiraled out of control from there. So like most people, those kinds of disordered eating habits typically lead to binge eating disorder or binge eating tendencies.
Yeah.
Which I struggled with binge eating disorder for 10 years. And that was a very long struggle for me.
Yeah.
And throughout that whole process is when I developed body dysmorphia, which I still struggle with to this day. It's always been there, but it's definitely something I've learned to work with.
Yeah.
And it really wasn't until I went to Italy in 2014, I believe I was 20 years old at the time, that I had my first spiritual awakening. You know, I was in a country all by myself, in an apartment, studying art history, food shopping for myself, cleaning for myself, cooking for myself, you know, coming from a home that was kind of coddled, having this breath of fresh air to really experience life on my own. It was like, wow, look how much bigger life is than me. Look how much bigger life is than just my problems. And so it was really then that I started to work on how I viewed myself. So I'm like, look how beautiful this world is, and it's different. Everything's different. I'm different, and I'm beautiful too. You know, what can I do to work on that? So I started listening to different podcasts, reading books, different YouTubers. Journaling was like a big thing for me during this time. And therapy. I was in conventional therapy for a few years. And in 2016, my therapist at the time introduced me to tarot. She brought a tarot deck to one of our first few sessions. And she's like, what do you think of this? And I grew up Catholic. So I was like, oh, the devil's in those cards. You know?
Yeah. Totally.
Like, I don't know. And she's just like, trust me. And it was like the minute she handed me the deck, I remember I started shuffling and I felt the vibrations. Like I felt the energy. I felt it overcome me, like as if I'd done it before. Like it was just remembering, right?
Remembering. Yes. I love that. Yeah.
Like with you for your Kundalini yoga, you know what I'm saying? Like remembering.
Wait, how did you know that? Have I told you that?
You talked about it in your videos, like remembering.
Okay. Yeah, it is. It's like I've done this before in lifetime.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And it's a beautiful feeling because you're like, wow, I'm really connected to my soul right now. Like I'm really connected to my purpose. Mm-hmm. And pretty much from there, I started doing tarot and oracle. And that was very healing for me, but I hadn't read for anybody else. Mm-hmm. And during that time in 2016, I had my Akashic records read. And that uncovered a whole lot, like abandonment issues, like fear of not being enough, just like all of these repressed emotions, even from past lifetimes, are coming up. And I was like, wow, like, this is crazy. And the woman facilitating it, you know, she said, you know, ask me questions. So I asked her, you know, what is my life purpose? And she just looked at me and she laughs. And I'm like, lady, this isn't funny. This is like a serious question. And she's like, this is your life purpose, like spiritual healing and teaching and guiding others. And I believe Reiki to be your first step. And so then in 2017, I received all 3 degrees of Reiki and established Scorpio and Sage, and have helped others through readings. And I find that people message me like just for insight, and I will talk and we'll chat. And I just find so much fulfillment from helping others reach their fullest potential and connecting to their soul self and finding that divine love within them, because that's really what it's about, is harnessing that divine love, like knowing that we are enough, that we're fulfilled, that we're validated. And we don't need external resources, people, places, or things to define our value. So that's kind of where I've been at.
Yeah, I love that. So amazing. I love that you use remembering. And I'm so curious if you think that you so enjoy giving people insight and helping others, not only because it's part of who we are, that we want to love people and we want to help people at our core, but also because you struggled finding that as a kid.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like having someone to help you.
No one, right. Like no one really understood me. And especially when I was bullied, I told my guidance counselor, I told my teachers, I told my parents, and it was the old adage, you know, if you ignore them, it'll go away. And that's not how it works anymore. And thankfully schools deal with that sort of thing much better nowadays.
Right.
But I wasn't helped, and I had to help myself. And I feel like before I resented that, whereas now I'm like, good for me for being there for myself.
Yeah. Absolutely. I love that. I think that's amazing. And so many people that are listening to this, I mean, I know I was bullied in junior high and high school. And I think so many people have gone through that in their life, and that a lot of people will resonate with those feelings of being bullied and feeling helpless and feeling like you want somebody to help you. And maybe there isn't anybody there that is able to help you. And so you know, kind of having to heal from within and take that journey on yourself can be really hard to do. And it doesn't mean that you can't get outside help or find outside help. It'll come. If you can manifest it and work to bring that in and find those people. But sometimes we have to just kind of confront it ourselves so that the rest of it can open up to us. So I want you, because you've done so much work, you know, you've worked so hard on your own healing and now the healing journeys of other people, which is amazing. And I just want you to talk a little bit more about past experience and maybe dive a little bit deeper into some of the feelings of the darkness, and just like kind of reference where you were to where you are now and how they're different, and whether that's emotionally, mentally, spiritually, just the differences that you see in yourself over that time.
I had a hard time for probably like my whole life up until I was 20, like right before I left for Italy. I knew I had anxiety, but I wasn't sure what that was. And my anxiety manifested as anger, like really intense anger. And for someone who, I'm very sensitive, I'm an empath, I'm a healer. So for someone of, I don't know, I feel that someone who is at that point inside themselves to be that angry, that creates a lot of inner chaos. And, you know, I was in relationships with people where I would just project because I didn't understand how I felt. I didn't understand why I was feeling so anxious. Why can't I breathe? Why can't I focus? Like, why can't I understand my thoughts? Like, okay, I'm just going to pick a fight with my partner to expel that energy. Like, give me an outlet to expel this anger so I don't have to sit with it anymore. And that was something I did in a lot of relationships, which has created a lot of regret, you know, inside of me. Like, I guess resentment towards myself for not understanding how to vocalize how I felt, how to not be self-aware. I was not self-aware. Like, I didn't understand mindfulness. I didn't understand being present. I was constantly in the past and in the future.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like through yoga and meditation, and definitely tarot cards and Reiki, of course, too, I've found a lot of self-awareness. And I mean, I'm not perfect. I still can get angry. I still get agitated, but I know how I feel. Even if I'm angry or agitated, I'm like, I'm angry because of this. I'm agitated. I don't really know why. So let's kind of figure it out. But I feel like even now I'm in a place where I'm moving away from like, I have to pick it apart. I have to pick it apart. I have to understand why and be like, I'm angry. That's okay. I can let it go. You know, like I feel like, whereas before I would hold on to it so hard and I'm like, I'm validated in how I feel and I'm not going to let it go. Whereas now I'm like, I can just let it go.
Yeah, that's where all of the crap comes from, is that we attach ourselves to it so hard and we refuse to give it up. And we're really just making ourselves miserable.
Exactly.
I used to do the same thing. It's like, you know, when you don't need to figure out why it's happening. You really don't. You can ask it. You can say, what are you here to teach me? What do you want to show me? But if you don't know it, and if it doesn't come up, know that it will present itself in the future and you'll be like, oh, that's why. But don't attach yourself to it now, because that just keeps you in the past. It's beautiful. You said that so perfectly.
Thank you.
I love that you mentioned that, because it's such an important thing. And especially because we play victim so much. Of not only emotions of other people, right? But emotions of ourselves.
Yeah.
Like we become the victim of our own like emotional and mental state.
And that's frustrating, at least for me. Like I get very frustrated when I'm like, oh, woe is me. No one's listening to me. No one's respecting how I feel. Like, and I find that I know that comes from when I was bullied, you know, like someone not hearing me, not making me feel valid in my emotions, like basically telling me to brush it under the rug. Whereas now as an adult, I'm like, I'm not brushing it under the rug. This is how I feel. And you better recognize how I feel. But then at that point, it's like counterproductive. Like now I'm being aggressive. Now I'm being something I don't want to be. You know, I want to be someone who can come from a place of compassion, understanding, and respect that, you know, if someone can't vibe with where I'm at, they're just not at that place yet. But and kind of like you said, like when we're thinking about how we feel and we're searching for that answer and it may just come later, it's because we weren't at that place yet to receive that information. And that's okay. And I think that's a part of it too, like trusting that the explanation will come if it's necessary. And if it's not necessary, it can be let go of.
Totally. Yeah. It's so good. I hope you guys are hearing this and internalizing it, because it was such an important aha moment for me when I realized that. I remember saying to somebody, well, I'll figure it out. That's what I said. I said, I'll figure it out, you know? And they were like, they looked at me and they said, and maybe you won't. And I was like, wait, what?
Oh, dang.
And then they were like, so if the answer doesn't come, it just doesn't matter. You didn't need it. And it blew my mind, and it made me look at things so differently. And so I hope you guys are internalizing what Jess is saying, because it's such an important part of taking ourselves out of our own negative emotions.
So true.
Yeah. Talk a little bit more about present moment awareness. I love that you're talking about self-awareness and just how you were always either thinking about the past, worried about the future, just stuck there, and like how you got to a time where you can be present and what that feels like.
That is still something I struggle with, because we know, like people who deal with anxiety know that it's so easy for anxiety to be like, hey, what's up? I'm here. And let me just take over your mind real quick. And then it tumbles out of control. So like, for instance, yesterday I'm in the shower and people are like, oh, showers are so relaxing. I'm like, no, like try being in my mind while I'm in the shower. Like I'm thinking of all the things I have to do. And, you know, for a moment, like I'm letting the water wash over me and I'm feeling my feet like pressed into the shower and I'm feeling what that feels like. Like I'm feeling what the water feels like. And I'm like, okay, this is what it means to be present. Like this is what it means to do things mindfully. And then all of a sudden I had all these creative ideas come to me. I'm like, oh, everyone's right when they say that when you're more present and mindful, the more creative ideas can flow to you. Like your intuition can speak to you. Your intuition has a clear pathway to communicate with you because you're not in your head thinking about what you need to make for dinner or like what you have to do for the coming week, you know? So that was a big like aha moment for me yesterday, because it's something I've been personally struggling with for a little bit, but in talking about manifesting in like the HHC and talking about like having mindful thoughts and like raising our vibration, I'm like, okay, how can I apply it even into like the littler tasks, like taking a shower? And then in the shower, I was able to come up with something creative I wanted to do. And I don't know, that really resonated with me. Like, wow, I can be mindful and I can still have intuitive thoughts and things flow to me.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think being present is, like you said, it's still something you struggle with. It's something that we're always going to struggle with because we love future tripping. We love it. Our egos love it so much to think about the future and to plan the future. Just like they love being in the past and thinking about everything that has gone wrong and, you know, or just trying to keep us in those emotions. So it's kind of a constant battle to stay present, but the more you do it, like practice makes perfect, right? And the more you do it, the better you get at it. And it's so good when you're there in the moment.
So good.
And you realize it kind of for the first time when you're like, I don't know, you're just in the moment and you see something that you didn't think that you'd never seen. And it was something you'd been looking at your whole life, you know?
Right.
I don't know. I find that especially when I'm in nature, if I'm really, really, really present, I'm like, whoa.
So nice.
Mm-hmm. What did it feel like for you to get through and to continue to go through the darkness that you have and like the struggles? And what does that feel like physically, mentally? What did you struggle most with it? And just how did it go for you?
When I first started doing this work, my first Reiki teacher, and she would do Reiki on me, and she's like, your solar plexus is so blocked. Like, you have so much fear. Like, you're holding on to so much fear. Like, you need to trust. Like, step into your power. Know that what you have to offer is true. Like, trust in yourself. I'm like, okay. And for those of you who don't know, the solar plexus is the heart of the ego. The ego sits in the solar plexus, and that's where fear, because the ego is like, worry about this, worry about this, worry about this. And then fear creates tension. Like, that's why sometimes physically as disease, we can have stomach issues. And I have celiac disease and IBS. So it's, you know, it's something that's always affected me, and working with the chakras have been so important for me to get out of my dark space. Like, so mentally, I started to just be more mindful, right? Be more mindful of my thoughts. Like, are they fearful? Why are they fearful? Is it a valid fear? Like, is this something to actually worry about?
Yeah.
You know, being mindful with my thoughts. Physically, it was stretching and yoga to help expand that tension, to help loosen the tension.
Yeah.
And energetically, it was really sending love and light to that chakra, like to really loosen up that space. And in doing so, over the course of like 4 months, like I lost like 20 pounds physically. Like, I shed physically. Yeah. And not to trigger anyone in terms of weight and numbers and all of that. But for someone, for me, where I wasn't worried about losing weight, I don't care anymore about that part, because I've let that go. Like, I've let that expectation that I've set for myself go. But to see physically how I've changed by shedding this emotional fear and stepping into like my power and trusting in the universe and like trusting that I don't have to have the answers to everything, really transformed my mind, body, and soul, and my spirit, because my intuition had room to come forward, because the ego was so strong. My ego was so in my face. My divine masculine was so heavy that like my divine feminine and my intuition were starving for attention and connection to me. That finding that balance has helped me with my darkness, because it gives me perspective. It gives me, I feel more grounded in who I am and the decisions I make, and with purpose. And that's really, for me, when I feel hopeless, I don't have purpose, like my depression can be smothering. Yeah. And really, for me, it's just connecting back to that source of power.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. So beautiful. And I love how you talked about how when you work inward, it heals the physical. Like, when you work mentally, emotionally, spiritually, it heals physically and disease in the body. Right. And that can be, we could do a whole episode on that.
Yeah, we could.
So much with that and to dig into, but because you've struggled with body dysmorphia and different, you know, like eating disorders and just kind of things you struggled with in the past, how has like healing that darkness helped you overcome or deal with those better?
Well, I guess really like my first blocks that I really became aware of was my solar plexus and then my heart chakra. And so your heart, you know, for those of you who don't know, is where we have love, forgiveness, trust, but we also can hold resentment and grudges there. And we can become very closed off, especially if we don't feel comfortable expressing our own vulnerable self and our own truth, So in being berated by these children, in school for not being enough, it's like my heart became hard.
Yeah.
Hardened towards myself, but not towards others, because
Right.
I am a loving, empathetic person. So I can still extend that outward, but that love and that sense of worthiness to myself was completely shut off. So it was about, working with essential oils, especially ylang ylang. That's a great oil to rub on your heart to help connect to your heart center. It's good for depression and anxiety. So the woman I was working with at the time created this intuitive blend where I would rub it on my chest every night in a bath, put rose quartz on my chest, and I would just meditate and I would extend love and worthiness to myself. And I did this ritual twice a week for 2 months.
Yeah.
I would just lay in this bath and I'm like, I'm enough. I am love. I'm divine love. I am worthy, and it was really introspective because I would have visualizations of like my heart almost like opening like a cabinet.
Yeah.
And it was like the energy from the rose quartz was spilling into my heart and healing the dark places. Like the dark pieces of my heart were healed by this energy. Like this is when I was connecting with archangels, like Raphael in particular. Like, please help me heal my heart. Please help me let go of resentments towards myself. Like this was really working on the resentments that I had towards myself for allowing others to make me feel this way, for allowing myself to make myself feel this way. But instead of looking at, like we've been learning with the judgment detox, like instead of judging myself for feeling like that, I acknowledged it and I healed it and I let it go.
Yeah. Amazing. I love that you mentioned the archangels because I'm an intuitive and specifically an angel intuitive. So I work a lot with the archangels and with personal angels for people. And I love angels so much. Yeah, they're so great. And I know that you and I the other day were talking about Raphael and Michael. And I mentioned, you had heard of Uriel, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I had kind of tuned into Jess's energy a little bit and really felt Uriel's presence. And so I don't know, can you share how you got into archangels and just what interests you and what you love? Because we haven't talked about it yet.
Yes. So I'm big with archangels as well. And when I was working with that woman in the past and she had done Reiki on me, she was like, wow, you always have Archangel Raphael and Archangel Michael around you. Like Archangel Michael is pulling out the negative black smoke and Raphael is putting in his healing emerald green energy to help heal. Like basically it's like Michael's taking out the dark stuff and Raphael's replacing it with the healing light of love. And that's a visualization like I've always done, but in doing Reiki on others, like I would connect with like Archangel Zadkiel and I'm like, are you communicating with people in a compassionate way? Are you communicating with yourself in a compassionate way? Like Joe feel like, are you clearing your space? Like, how does your space feel? Like how productive do you feel? Like I learned through the archangel cards, doing my own research and tapping into their energy specifically, especially clearing homes. If I go into a home, like I have certain archangels that like I like to use to clear homes. And it's really like my main three are Archangel Raphael for healing, Archangel Michael for protection, Archangel Zadkiel for compassionate communication, because those are really three pillars that are important to have in a home.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's kind of where I've worked with them, is primarily in home cleanings. And then I typically tap into them when I'm doing Reiki on a client.
Yeah, I love that. When I did my first Reiki my first Reiki session, I remember her saying, like, she started and she was like, whoa. And I was like, what? And I had never even had Reiki before and I was so confused. And she was just like, you have so many angels around you. Like, she was like, your aura is full of angels. And I was like, really? I was so into it. And so I tried to, and she was like, yeah, and they really want to connect with you, but you're really blocked. And my solar plexus was like, you on fire. Like it was huge. I mean, it was so full. It was unbelievable. And like, I cried basically that whole session with what she was working on and like the things that she said to me. And Reiki, you guys, Reiki is freaking magic. We have to talk about that now. Talk about your like Reiki journey and why you love it and all that.
So when I was doing sessions with that woman, she had said, you need to do Reiki because she's a Reiki too. And I'm like, okay, sure, whatever. I'm looking up Reiki. I'm like, all right, like this sounds a little woo-woo, but I'm open-minded. Yeah. And I found a local woman doing a class for Reiki 1. And, when I went there, she is an intuitive medium. And she looks at me and she's like, yeah, you're supposed to be here. I'm like, okay, yeah, I feel that. That's cool. So going over the chakras, like I'd already known pretty much the overall outline of them, and talking about the history of Reiki, finding that, Buddha and Jesus were like the first real Reiki masters. Like that was amazing. I was like, wow, that's really profound. And
oh my gosh, I have goosebumps everywhere. You got to keep talking. Keep going.
And, so before we got attuned, she's like, I want you to practice on me. And I'm like, I'm not even attuned. How am I supposed to practice on you? And that's when she had said, everyone has the ability to do it. It's just about 20 or 30% versus when you're attuned to each level, it goes up higher and higher. I'm like, okay. And so she paired us with everybody, but then I didn't have a partner. So she paired me with her. I'm like, all right, no pressure. And she's like, right. I'm like, okay, this is like the master. Okay. And so, I rub my hands together and I start scanning her, and I'm like going over her body, and I went to her sacral, and I'm feeling it. I'm like, there's a lot of trauma here. Like there's a lot of hurt, a lot of pain here. And she just like looks at me and she's like, well, at least you know that you're not in the wrong place. And she was like, that's impressive. And I was like, oh, great. Like it was the first time in my life that I felt like I was on the right path, because I was always someone who, like, I didn't know what I wanted to go to college for. I didn't know what I wanted my job to be. I didn't know what my life purpose career-wise was. And I just felt so disconnected and depressed because of that. Like I was depressed for years because I had no idea what my purpose was. And to finally find that out was so heartwarming. And so she pulls us into a private room to attune us. And I'm sitting, I have my eyes closed, she does the attunement. And all of a sudden I'm in this field and I'm visualizing, and I'm riding bareback on this horse in this like grasslands, right? And the horse is crazy. The horse is telling me like, remember that you're beautiful, and like, remember that like your gifts are unique, and like you can heal people and us animals too. And so then I get out of it and I'm crying because I'm releasing as she's doing the attunement. And then she says to me, she's like, you have a connection with horses. I'm like, yeah, I do. I used to have a horse too. And she was like, I just felt that like a horse was here when I did that. And she's like, that's amazing. I don't know, like so many things have come up and resonated with me since my Reiki journey began that it's just been so profound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you ever done Reiki on animals?
Yeah. So we have, my parents have 3 dogs. We have 2 pitties and a Chihuahua. So and our big boy, he's our big pitty. He's very rambunctious. He's so anxious. He just doesn't know how to like take a deep breath.
Yeah.
And he's like a sun child too. So he'll lay out in the sun, and that's when I can do Reiki on him. So like we're both charging up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our pit mix is a sun. He literally, if there's a sliver of sun anywhere, he's
laying down. Yeah. Like sunbathing. Mm-hmm. And he's charging up. I'm charging up. And I can feel like all of his fear, like he just has like a lot of uncertainty because he was adopted, like rescued, so he was a surrender. So someone brought him to the shelter and left him there, he has a lot of fear of abandonment. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why he's so anxious too, because he's so unstable. So it's been a lot of like working with his root chakra. And like, I do a lot of distant healing for him because I'm not at my parents' house as much, so like that's been a good practice tool as well.
Totally. And sometimes, I don't know about you when you were attuned, but when I was attuned and we talked about doing Reiki on animals, they said sometimes for some animals, it's almost better to do distance healing because it can be really overpowering, because animals, you guys, are natural energy sensors. So if you're a Reiki healer and you go to like a dog park, they're going to come over to you. They're going to, especially if you turn it on, because they love and like they're energy sensors, and they want that like loving, compassionate energy, and they can sense that. And so, she said that doing distance was almost better sometimes, especially for anxious animals, because they receive it better.
Yeah.
So that's amazing that you've been doing that for him. So good.
Well, yeah, exactly. I do it for Butters is our beagle pit mix, and she's very fearful because she was left in a box for like 4 months, like by herself out in the wilderness, like, so she's so sad and scared, and like she doesn't do well physically with Reiki. Like she kind of freaks out. She'll twitch. Like she'll start licking my hand. And I know that sometimes they say that they'll move for you for the right position, but like with her, it has to be distant because she can't receive it physically. I think it's way too much for her because she's already sensitive, like you said.
Yeah. Totally. And for those of you who don't know, and Jess can talk about it too, but Reiki is a form of energy healing. It's a Japanese form of energy healing. And when you're attuned to it, like you said, you can do Reiki, because I kind of had the same experience. I actually was doing Reiki on people and I didn't realize it until I was giving it to my sisters during a crystal bath. And I knew that I needed to get attuned to Reiki. Yeah. And so I did. When I got home, I got attuned to Reiki, and I'm a Reiki level 2. So Jess is a Reiki master, so she can actually attune people. Can you attune people?
Yes.
Yes. So Jess can attune people. I'm a Reiki level 2. So I'm kind of a step below the master. So I can't actually attune people to Reiki, but I can do distance sessions and all of that, which I do a lot. But it's so funny. I just have to talk about this briefly because you mentioned it. And I won't take up too much of your talking time. But when I was attuned to Reiki, you mentioned Jesus, and it just blew my mind because I've never had anybody mention this before, but I was getting attuned to Reiki, and the whole time that I was being attuned, I wasn't crying, but what happened was I was sitting up and hands in prayer pose. Yep. And my body moved in a circle the entire time. Oh. And I wasn't moving it, and it would move like my head would move like almost all the way down to the ground. Like it was a really big, like it felt like I was a pendulum. And I
was just about to say, yes.
And I couldn't feel it though, because all I could see was this is wild. I can't believe I'm saying this. I've never said this to anybody. I was with Jesus.
That's amazing.
And we were walking on water, as Jesus does.
As Jesus does. I love it.
I was with him, and I was holding his hand, and we were walking on water, and he was just telling me that this was my path. And he took me to somebody, and I watched him heal someone.
That's amazing.
He was like, "Now you do it." And I woke up.
That's cool.
And the attunement.
That's amazing.
It was unbelievable. And I was like, wait a minute. Jesus did Reiki.
That's amazing.
So it's crazy that you said that, but yeah, it was wild. And I remember just sitting there. I opened my eyes and everything looked different. It was like, I don't know. It's strange when you
That's
get
so true.
Yeah.
It's true that you say that though, because I think it was after I got my master. Yeah. So I had one teacher for my first 2 attunements, and then I had a different teacher for my master, which I know is a little unorthodox. I know a lot of people stay with the same teacher, but it was like I had this draw to this woman, like a past life connection. I'm like, I know you.
Right.
And so she brought me through a guided meditation before she attuned me. Mm-hmm. And I woke up, and like you said, like I literally, the details of the things in this world had changed. And to me, I'm like, obviously I vibe now at a higher frequency, because, like the higher you vibe, the different you see the physical world too. Right. Like that's like when people do like psychedelics. I'm not saying do psychedelics. I'm saying that when you do psychedelics, like
because we want to get there,
your mind is able to see the world for how it really is at a higher vibrational frequency. But, you can't just be like tripping all day on like psychedelics, but through spiritual work and practice, we can elevate our frequency and change our DNA to get to that like different dimension,
Yeah.
And I think that's wild.
I know it is really wild. Do you see energy?
I can see auras, but I don't see spirit, like ghosts. I can sense spirit. Like I know when a spirit is in a room. I sense spirit primarily through Reiki and tarot. I will have people's loved ones like come through, or if it's at someone's house, like a spirit in their house. Yeah. For energy, I can see energy and people, like sense it more as clairsentient. So if I looked at someone who was angry, I would sense and see their color of their aura is like maybe like gray, brown, or black.
Right.
Does that make sense?
I got you. Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah. Perfect sense. Yeah, so interesting. I'm a medium. I've done a lot of mediumship work in the past, and I love it. Mediumship to me feels a lot like Kundalini does. It feels like home. I've done it before.
Yes.
And I did a past life. This is a lot of information, but I did a past life regression where I was told that I was beheaded in a past life for being a medium.
Wow.
And because basically what happened was I was coming into mediumship and I didn't know what it was. This was the very beginning of my spiritual journey and it super freaked me out. I was doing an oracle reading for somebody and their mother came through for an hour.
Wow.
And I was like telling this person things that I didn't even know, that she couldn't believe I knew, that nobody else knew. And I was shocked. I mean, I ended the reading and I just sat there in silence for so long, just thinking what just happened. And I didn't channel. I don't channel spirit. I like know. I'm very claircognizant. So
Same.
I just know things. And I don't know how I know them or why I know them. I just know them.
Yeah, exactly.
So, cause I don't like hear voice. I don't hear spirit very much. I just know. I like, and sometimes my second clair would be clairvoyant and I'll get visions and pictures, but mostly I'm just very claircognizant. So,
me as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So it came through as a medium reading and basically I aggressively, that's really the best word to describe it, denied this part of myself. And I did not want to be a medium and it really freaked me out, but spirit kept coming to me and asked, and I didn't know why that was happening because I gotta say I was never scared. I just want to put that out there that I was never scared of spirit. I just didn't really want to do it and I didn't really understand it. And then when I did the regression and they told me this, I have major throat chakra.
Oh yeah, I was going to say.
I have major, like my whole life. I choked when I was a really little kid twice and almost died once from choking.
Crazy.
And I get acid reflux. Like I've had a lot of throat issues. I had my tonsils out when I was 3. It's my first memory in life.
Wow.
Is my tonsil surgery. That's like the first thing I remember about living here on this earth. And so I've had major throat chakra blocks. And so when he told me that I was beheaded, I was like, well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then also like for being a medium and how much I didn't want to do that. That makes perfect sense.
That's crazy.
But yeah, it's, oh my gosh, I feel like we have to come back on and like do more things. Is there anything that you can think of that you haven't touched on that you really want to make sure you get out there?
I think what's important for, I guess, a part of my journey that recently really has come up for me is my creative flow. You know, I've always been creative as a child, whether drawing, painting, coloring, photography. Right now, really, and probably will be my thing for the rest of my life is like essential oil recipes. Like before this, I had kind of like a mini breakdown about like my body. Like I was like, oh, like this just like my body's not the way I want it to be, like struggling with the body dysmorphia. So I made like a roll-on called Self-Love Club. And it's just like essential oils that help with self-love. And like, I know that essential oils is part of my creative flow. And like, that's something like I want to add to Scorpio and Sage eventually. And I think it's important to understand that the expectations we set for ourselves are always going to make us feel like we're not enough. You know, expectation is like the root of evil in the sense that like the root of like the ego is what sets expectations, if you will. And I don't know. I feel like that's been a big lesson for me lately is like expectations, like releasing expectations for my creative flow, releasing expectations for my brand and for, you know, my spiritual services, releasing expectations for what I feel called to do. Like before we came on, I did a live Instagram video talking about how I want to start a YouTube channel and not so much like, I don't really care about fancy graphics or fancy this or that. Like you said earlier, like being live, I vibe with that too. Like I flow better when I'm live and I know that that's how I would want to do my YouTube channel. But then I have, you know, outside sources saying, well, you got to do this and you got to do that. And it has to be look like this and it has to look like this. And I'm like, you're trying to set expectations for me. I'm not trying to set expectations for me. Like I literally just want to flow creatively and feel called to what I want to do. And I know that if I flow with what is calling to me, that's going to be most organic and raw and natural. And I think that's kind of what I'm struggling with now is trusting the creative flow and like trusting myself to know that what I'm doing is right for me.
Yeah. So how do you start to trust that? Like, what does that look like?
I think it's just
oils and just like your spiritual toolbox basically, or like,
like just doing it. Like I always am like, well, I can't do this until I have this. And I can't do this until I have this. And it goes back to, you know, buying things to fill that void too, you know, not having enough to be enough. And it's like, I can take a video on my iPhone. I can take a video on my laptop.
Yeah.
You know, it to me, it's not the quality of the video, it's the quality of the content to me, you know, and if people don't want to vibe with it because I'm not spending hours of editing on my computer, like, then you're just not meant to receive that information, and that's okay.
Yeah. And that is okay. And I think that's just really cool that you're at that place, because especially with having anxiety and struggling with that in the past and just what you have, it's so huge that you've been able to take so many lessons and just learn from everything and put it into practice in such a good, positive way. And then share it with all these people listening that are like, wow, I get that. I feel that. I understand so much of Jess's story and what she struggled with and the bullying. But she took that and like did something with it, and look at her now. I mean, that's so cool. You're such a great example to all of these people that have dreams and want to do things and feel like they're held back in a big way. But the only limitations that you have on yourself are the ones you place and the expectations of the ego, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So cool. I love that. If there's somebody out there listening to this saying what I just said, like, oh my gosh, I am Jess years ago when she was struggling, what would you want to say to them?
That all of the answers you need are within yourself, that the guidance you're seeking, the fulfillment that you're seeking is within yourself, and that you don't need anybody else to create your life. Like, you don't need anybody else to tell you what you need to do, because really at the end of the day, you just have yourself, really. And then to know and to accept that you know what you need to do. Like, take the moment to sit with yourself and ask yourself, what do I need right now to heal X, Y, and Z? What do I need to just move forward out of this negative mindset? Like, how can I see tomorrow as a brighter day? Like, sure, you can ask whomever, you can get a reading from someone, you can get Reiki from someone, but really and truly, when you need to find those answers, you need to go within yourself. And I wish that was something I understood and knew during that time, because I was constantly like, well, I'll buy this to fulfill me or make it better, or I'll, do this program or read this book to find what I'm seeking. And it's like, those are great tools, but you can't neglect your own inner wisdom.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, so, so powerful. And Jess and I were talking right before we hopped on the podcast about our attachment to things and just how really everything we own is on borrow, and we don't get to take it with us. Like, we take our souls, and how everything, what we own doesn't matter. How we transform and how we grow and how we evolve as souls, that does matter, because we take that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Really cool. Amazing message. So just to end, I like to ask everybody who comes on the Healing Her podcast what their personal mantra is.
I feel that it really goes back to like my bath ritual, because ever since then, it is something I will always tell myself, like, I am loved.
Mm-hmm.
I am loved. I am created out of divine love.
Mm-hmm.
And I will always be love.
Yes.
Because fear is human based. Mm-hmm. Fear is ego based. Like, when we were created as a soul, we weren't created with judgment, greed, anger, and resentment. We were created with love, trust, and compassion, and understanding. And that is the core of who we are. And that is what I say to myself to remind myself that I am that love. I'm worthy of that love, because I already am that love.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Oh, I love that so much. I love that you said fear is human based, because we hear all the time that fear is ego based, but it's human, right?
Right.
Like,
totally.
I said the other day, like, to err is human, which I haven't heard in a long time, but like, to fear is human. That's not soul. That's not soul based.
No, not at all.
Yeah, so good. Well, it's been absolutely unbelievable having you on here. And for anybody who's wondering, I'm going to, as soon as we're done, try to book a Reiki session with Jess here. But it's been so great having you. Thank you so much for being on and sharing your story.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, well, have a great day. We'll talk to you again soon.
Yeah, you too.
All right. Bye, girl.
Bye.
Another huge thank you to Jess Palmer for coming on the Healing Her podcast and sharing her story and her truth with you guys today and doing a beautiful card reading for all of us, which I so enjoyed. And I can't wait for you guys to hear a bonus episode that's coming for you this Friday morning. I'm going to be doing a solo episode talking all about my spiritual coming out story. From the Healing Her Collective, I've gotten a lot of questions about spirituality and talking openly about it on social media with friends and family, and just being able to stand in your truth when it involves spirituality. And so I'm going to talk about my internal struggle and my external struggle in coming out spiritually and sharing my truth and my beliefs with the world and what I stand for and all that good stuff. So that'll be coming for you guys on Friday morning. And I'm really excited to share that with you and how I've coped with it and how I can give you guys some tips to be able to do that yourself. So stay tuned for that coming Friday morning. And remember that if you rate and review this podcast and send a screenshot to abbyeokeefe@gmail.com, I will send you along a personal intuitive card reading as well as the Kundalini meditation to clear the emotional past, which is one I've been doing for months every single day. And this is one that really makes you feel lighter right after you do it. It really clears out the subconscious, any past pain or traumas or negative self-limiting beliefs or thought patterns that you've been holding on to. It'll clear those out and really free you. It feels so freeing and so good every time I do this meditation. So make sure to do that if you're enjoying the podcast and if you want to hear more from the Healing Her podcast. And thank you again so much for listening. Have a beautiful day, and I will see you all on the next episode.